Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. Continuing on with our derivation, what is sensorality? Sensorality is paradoxicality. And last time we really isolated again, what is a paradox? Right? We have this kind of looks like a para. I'm sure when you see paragraph, if you've studied Spanish, the first thing is like, why are all these paras on here? But it's true. Like I said, languages are not distinct. Anything that is codified or established within one language, that linguistics, like literally the verbiage, that's why you have doppelganger, that's why you have all of these different, whenever someone says a loan word from one language to another, that's what you're experiencing. Some experience, some description, some object, something is described more specifically in a given language, so they just kind of accept that verbiage. But we said, what is a paradox? Right, so now back in English, sorality is doxicality. Right, dox, and then like last time we did a, le, a, o, right? But ox, right? If you have an ox chord, dox and ox. And again, we're reducing all of this logical structure that we've built. What is filtrationality, right? So now we can remove that rationality, right? It's clearly the base. What is filt, right? Where is that filt coming from? Filt, felt. Sensorality is felt, right? If you have senses, they feel things. Swayed is felt, right? If you have if I'm playing poker and I'm on the felt, right, it's swayed. Speciality is differentiationality. So now again, this is very similar for speciality. What we're doing when we're isolating these base words is they literally have to, again, coincide with these geometric relationships that are not articulated or not formalized. But it's whatever we're doing is like we're putting these base words in the middle of all of this prefix and all of this suffix. So if you look at the word differentiationality, and it'll be on your screen, clearly that base word is rent. There's a whole bunch of letters before rent and a whole bunch of letters after rent, but rent is the base word. And so now again, think of like when I'm saying we're talking about all of this personification. All language is articulated by a sentient individual. And so in the same way an idea has to generate within yourself, that light bulb has to click, something has to pop into your head. Linguistically, it's like, again, we're getting the base word to the center, and then no even number has a well-defined center point. So no word with an even amount of letters has a well-defined center point, a pivot point, a point of inflection, a point of change. And so we're like generating the vowel inside, right? If you take any, right, in the same way you can say, it seems like a trivial statement, but there are no even prime numbers, but if you take any even number and add 1 to it, you get an odd number. If you take any word with an even amount of letters and add another letter, you're going to have a well-defined center point. And this is for our geometric relationships that are not codified or formalized literally anywhere. But the point being is now we have differentiationality. And you can hear that in the pronunciation, differentiationality. So you emphasize the base word and then there's like some trailing sounds that come after it. And so I had this at the end of my derivation, but dissonance is the difference, right? If I'm sitting here vibrating, and now I want to form words, what am I doing? Right? Sound is consistent, vibration is consistent. You're breaking that sound with dissonance, right? Resonance is coherence. Coherence, literally physically, is logic. And so all of our consonants are breaking this vibration. That preserves meaning. So speciality is differentiationality. What is rentality? Right now we just take out that base word and we generalize it. Rentality. Then we get rental. Speciality is rental. And you might say, how does that pair up with our other working definitions? It doesn't. It doesn't matter. Again, we're reducing all of this logic. But I'm showing you how we're generalizing, pulling out a base word, and then regeneralizing that base word after like shedding all of this prefix and suffix. How do facts relate to tactility? Tactile, visceral, right? Can you touch logic? Can you physically touch logic? No. Right? Does energy have a form? No. You can understand logic. You can't touch it. Right? Nothing is touching. We can even just break that because of discreteness. We can just break that entirely. But then we can even ask the question: is anything continuous? Because we have this fundamental mass gap, which is physically apparent When I have 3 iterations of a shadow against a wall, that's because of an internal mass gap. And when there's clearly, I don't walk around like there's strings tied to my feet, that's an external mass gap. So is anything actually continuous? Right? There is no medium. So when I've been saying we've been proven the consistency of language, the consistency of sound, is consistency continuity? And the answer is no. Right? And because we have this mass gap, continuity does not exist, but consistency does. So what is the relationship of consistency and continuity? And we know continuity has limits, physical limits, it breaks. There is a space between me and this, there's an absence. See what we did there? Of mass between me and this notebook. But can you touch logic? No. Is factuality tactile? No. It's an understanding. It's resonance. Right? When you're sitting there, that light bulb clicks, or it pops into your head. Well, I guess clicking more to that one. You're just understanding. It's making sense. You didn't gain any more mass. You just rearranged your, like literally your molecules in your brain. What is the relationship of feeling and touching? Right? Nothing is touching as the linguistics, which is very apparent for our Sistine Chapel, and you're a little kid and you go up to your brother or sister, I'm not touching you. And then when you think about your body right now, those are pressure points of where you contact something, but you're not actually touching. We're connected through contact, but it's not touch. So feeling and touching, right? If I feel the air, right? It's pressure. You feel pressure. You touch. What is touching? All right, so we talked about a faux pas. Like what literally false not. So I guess what is falsity? Falsity is not true. En français, vrai ou faux. Friend or foe. It kind of sounds like a foe in English. Doesn't matter, not the point. But again, we have to return to our faux pas that we created in French in this lecture series. Un faggot avec nos baguettes et un faux pas. Où est ça? A faggot with no baguette is a false knot, or is it? Again, sounds derogatory, but a faggot literally is a bundle of sticks, and a baguette literally is a stick, right? People say a baguette's the baguette du pain, but it's du pain, from bread, stick of bread or from the bread. But now, can you have a bundle of sticks with no sticks? No, right? So is that a false knot? That, I guess that's not a knot. I mean, it's logically consistent, right? You can't have a bundle of sticks with no sticks. Why do I keep saying this? I don't know, but that is the false knot that we have to work through all of this logic independent of any one language. So that's all I got there for now. What is senial, right? We have seniality. We put that I back into senile, sourcinality, seniality. But senial, and again, now we have that geometric relationship of that R bridging to the N. Right? It's like getting closer to completion, right? If you do an N and then you kind of whip it around, you get like an oval. So again, all of these relationships are out there. But R to the N is more complete than just the R. So senial, and then we get that serial again, like a serial number. So seniality is seriality. And then like literally, physically, geometrically, it's just bridging that R. That's the only difference. And we're trying to show the completeness to the actual sounds being articulated. Seriality is seretical. Again, what is this difference between series and sequence? Again, it's a well-defined historical development of mathematical ontology independent of me, but again, it's some aspect of chronology. Chronology plus or minus operation, right? What is the difference between a series and a sequence, and you're not allowed to say the word operation? Meaning, does sequentiality even exist? If I just have a random list of numbers, in the same way no numbers exist, it has to pair to a physical process. So is there some sort of sequence that does not relate to an operation? I think the answer is no. So I think as defined, sequentiality doesn't exist. Meaning everything has some sort of order to it. Timing is everything. Everything has a date, right? Timing is dating. Yeah. So I just think there's no, as defined sequentiality, I mean, I said what I said, but again, I don't know, because we're logically exhausting, there's nothing else to say. But again, series and sequence, and it was like at the very, very beginning of From Rhythm to Algorithm 2, it's kind of almost where we started. But now that we have this chronology proven, I think it just makes sense to say there was no such thing as a sequence, meaning an order of numbers with no operation implied because it's pairing to a physical process. If I'm tracking my metabolic, how often do I eat, right? The motivation to track that's coming from my biological process, and that's always going to be time dependent. So that's what I got for there for now. But sensorality is operative, right? Now we've come to the statement, you respond to operative words. When you're listening to a lecture, this one, me, anybody, and then you're waiting for the next word, or you're anticipating a word, those are your operative words. So operation, operative. Sensorality is chronologicality. Because now you can look at chronology, right? Analogy, right? See how it's just like prefix and suffix around logic, right? Well, what is logic? Again, now it's coherence. It's physically coherence. What is the opposite of a limit? When math class is said, we're taking a limit, we're taking a limit. Why do we take limits? Some aspect, some derivative aspect of convergence. Like when I'm speaking, I'm always going to, truncate or cut off some sort of syllability. Maybe it's an acronym in my work environment. Maybe it's me knowing somebody on a personal level, so we don't have to do all the formalities. Hey, how are you? Where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. You're always converging to be more efficient. But then there's a point where you can't converge anymore, you can't reduce anymore, or you oversimplify. And so we're kind of right on that boundary, again, with the ontology of the whole species. So what is the opposite of a limit? Facilitation, growth, stimulus, a catalyst. Right? If you're not limiting something, you're facilitating it, you're helping it grow. So we'll say a catalyst is the opposite of a limit. I don't know, sky's the limit, let's have less sky, I don't know. Sensorality is mitigationality. Disfiguring is mutilation. Mitigation lessens. Lessening limits. Now again, sensorality is lessening. But remember, sensorality, lessening. And we can see, again, we're moving this sense. Again, even at this point, it's just like S-E-N is the base, not even the whole word sense. But again, 3 letters, 1 syllable, kind of lining up with our numerics limits now. But we're moving that sen to the middle. And lessening, right, to mitigate is to lessen. It preserves that linguistic thing that we need. Sensing, lessening. Sensorality is senning. So now again, we just take that les, clearly functioning as a prefix. What is senning? Sensorality is senning. So again, remember, we're deriving this natural definition, and we'll have a very simple question, and the answer will be sensorality. Sensorality is seninality. Just put another I in there, or we just put the ality at the end. Take off the G, add an ality. Learning is retention. Relationship, what is the relationship of retaining and maintaining? All right? If you retain information, that's when you learn something. You can apply it to something new. You don't have to spend your whole life learning. That's obvious. Maintenance is just to not lose. I don't think it limits gain, but it's definitely if you say I'm going to maintain something, you're definitely implying you're not going to lose something. So maintenance maintains. Sensorality requires maintenance, right? Like if I have to eat, I have to sleep, I have to hopefully exercise sometimes. But my back is still ruined and I don't have access to healthcare because I am a slave. That's actually not a joke. Now et maintenant. Back to French, right? Now is, in French, maintenant. But again, we're just trying to isolate this unique syllability. Maintenant es ahora. Right, now back to Spanish. Ahora, right, now. Back to English, abhorrent. Ahora, abhorrent. Right, aquí, ahora. Right, now a lot of people might say aquí, like here. No, at who? Aquí, at who? Aquí, ahora. At who, to our, or to who, at our. And it's not supposed to make a lot of sense. To who, at our. At. So again, remember, because there's all of this, we're kind of lining up. Like the opposite of absence is, what is this one? Abscess, right? The opposite of absence is abscess. And so again, we're trying to show this, again, this fundamental iteration of where these base words differentiate. We have the stability of 2, and we have to get them both up to the right form. We can just directly show how it differentiated by this derivation. And so again, like the A, B, C, D, E, there's some sort of numeric limit with this. The first all of these different numeric limits we've discussed with the actual alphabet, because the alphabet is already a convergent thing, right? English is not some unique language. It's the most specific or something. But point being is the opposite of absence is abscess. Like if you have like a pus or a gland swollen, it's an abscess. But so then you can see in the words, like it's absence, like A-B-E-N-C, right? So absensed, right? Sensorality is abscessed or absensed. I'll put it on the screen, but you'll be very clear. It's again, we're trying to use these first 5 letters. And again, the syllability, the dimensionality of 1, 3, 5. I mean, we've covered all of the numerics as much as I can articulate them, but it will all be apparent with this demonstration of completeness. So that is what I have for you today. A lot of progress as always. Again, it continues to be torture to not pay me something because I've done this whole process and I can't speed it up or I can't slow it down. And it's taken away my ability to have a career and a family, obviously, and just no one gives a fuck because there are genuinely no values. So I hope you learned something. Continue to steal everything. Whoever watches this, continue to steal, lie, cheat, and steal because that's all you're fucking worth. That's all you're good for, is being a little dirty fucking thief and being part of a system so big that you're like, it's not my responsibility to tell the truth, even though if it's literally my job to uphold the law or to disseminate scientific information, not my job. Well, all of your family members committing fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy will absolutely be prosecuted. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.